Now, if you will show kindness and faithfulness to my master, tell me. And if not, tell me, so I may know which way to turn. Laban and Bethuel answered, This is from the Lord. We can say nothing to you one way or the other. Here is Rebekah. Take her and go, and let her become the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has directed. When Abraham's servant heard what they said, he bowed down to the ground before the Lord. Then the servant brought out gold and silver jewelry and articles of clothing, and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave costly gifts to her brother and to her mother. Then he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night there. When they got up the next morning, he said, Send me on my way to my master. But her brother and her mother replied, Let the girl remain with us 10 days or so, then you may go. But he said to them, Do not detain me. Now that the Lord has granted success to my journey, send me on my way, so I may go to my master. Then they said, Let's call the girl and ask her about it. So they called Rebekah and asked her, Will you go with this man? I will go, she said. So they sent their sister Rebekah on her way, along with her nurse and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, Our sister, may you increase to thousands upon thousands. May your offspring possess the gates of their enemies. Then Rebekah and her maids got ready and mounted their camels and went back with the man. So the servant took Rebekah and left. Now Isaac had come from Beer Lahai Roi, for he was living in the Negev. He went out to the field one evening to meditate, and as he looked up, he saw camels approaching. Rebekah also looked up and saw Isaac. She got down from her camel and asked the servant, Who is that man in the field that's coming to meet us? He is my master, the servant answered. So she took her veil and covered herself. Then the servant told Isaac all he had done. Isaac brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he married Rebekah. So she became his wife, and he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Just as Isaac is comforted after his mother's death by taking a wife, so Abraham is comforted after Sarah's passing by taking a wife named Keturah. However, all of Abraham's sons, other than Isaac, are eventually sent away, presumably to ensure preeminence to Isaac and his descendants. The record of Abraham's offspring by Keturah lists 6 sons, 7 grandsons, and 3 great-grandsons, regarding whom any future reference is uncertain. Abraham left everything he owned to Isaac, but while he was still living, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them away from his son Isaac to the land of the east. The Genesis record closes its account of Abraham's life with a brief account of his death and burial. Significantly, Ishmael and Isaac bury not only their father, but also, at least temporarily, any hostility which may have come between them over the years. All evidence from this point forward, however, indicates that the descendants of these 2 half-brothers will have virtually nothing in common with each other. The single known exception will come when Isaac's son Esau will take wives from the daughters of Ishmael. For now, one of the most significant characters in the unfolding story of God's dealings with mankind is laid to rest. But Abraham will be remembered throughout history as one of the most outstanding men of faith ever to have lived. Altogether, Abraham lived 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man and full of years, and he was gathered to his people. His sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite, the field Abraham had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. Ishmael is 89 years old when his father Abraham dies, and he will live for another 48 years. He will have 12 sons and presumably many daughters. Because the Genesis record will soon concentrate exclusively on the life of Isaac and his descendants, a last account of Ishmael and his sons is given at this point. This is the account of Abraham's son Ishmael, whom Sarah's maidservant Hagar the Egyptian bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael, listed in the order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jeter, Naphish, and Kedema. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these are the names of the 12 tribal rulers, according to their settlements and camps. Altogether, Ishmael lived 137 years. He breathed his last and died, and he was gathered to his people. His descendants settled in the area from Havilah to Shur, near the border of Egypt, as you go toward Ashur, and they lived in hostility toward all their brothers. With the death of Abraham, the Genesis record begins to provide increasing detail regarding the lives of Abraham's descendants, and events are recorded at briefer intervals. Whereas major events of the first 2,500 years have been chronicled as only a brief outline, the remainder, first 25 years, have been chronicled. The remainder of Genesis provides an in-depth look at Isaac's children and grandchildren. For the most part, the events speak for themselves. The people whose lives are recorded exhibit both the best and worst of human nature, typifying the formal struggles which encompass the human predicament and pointing up the need for a God who can lift mankind above its own circumstances. The scene for the next 150 years is set when Rebekah gives birth to twins and is told prophetically that these two sons will be the fathers of nations, which will in time struggle with each other for dominance. The account picks up immediately following the death of Isaac's father. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who then lived near Beer Lahai Roi. This is the account of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Padan Aram, and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife, because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out, with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. As Esau and Jacob grew into manhood, they take on individual characteristics and become especially favored. Esau by Isaac and Jacob by Rebekah. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. An incident having extraordinary consequences is now recorded, which now gives insight into the character of each man, but also has important implications for the further descent of the people through whom God has chosen to reveal himself. The event involves the transfer of the birthright belonging to Esau, the firstborn of the twins. By that birthright, Esau would stand to receive a double part of Isaac's estate and take over leadership of the family upon Isaac's death. Once, when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." "Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is a birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil soup. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Careless and apparently disinterested in the benefits and responsibilities attendant to the birthright, Esau unknowingly forfeits his opportunity to be the one in his generation through whom the blessings promised to his grandfather, Abraham, would pass. Esau's descendants will never be God's special people. In fact, pursuant to the prophecy given to Rebekah, in future years, Esau's descendants will indeed be subservient to the Hebrews, who will be the direct descendants of Jacob. With reference to the redness associated with Esau's birth, Esau's descendants will bear the name Edomites and be a continuing source of friction for the Hebrew nation.